In a quiet village surrounded by endless stretches of farmland, there lived a couple named Kofi and Ajoa. Kofi was a respected farmer, known for his strength and hard work, while Ajoa, his wife, was cherished for her kindness and grace. They had been married for many years, and though their lives seemed perfect, there was one thing they lacked: children. In their village, having children was considered one of the greatest blessings. Families with children were viewed as favored by the gods, while those without were often pitied. Despite their love for each other, Kofi and Ajoa's marriage was overshadowed by the sorrow of childlessness. Every time a child was born in the village, the pain of not having their own gnawed at their hearts. Whispers would follow Ajoa wherever she went, with villagers murmuring that she was barren, cursed, or forgotten by the gods. Ajoa endured the whispers with quiet grace, never letting them break her spirit. She poured all her energy into their farm, working beside Kofi from sunrise to sunset. Together, they had built a life filled with love and respect, even if it was just the two of them. Still, Ajoa often found herself praying in the solitude of her fields, asking the gods for a miracle. One particularly hot afternoon, Ajoa was working alone on their farmland. Kofi had gone to the village to sell some of their crops, leaving her to tend to the earth. The sun beat down relentlessly, but she didn't mind. The work was a welcome distraction from her thoughts. As she dug her hoe into the ground, loosening the soil to plant more seeds, she heard something unusual. It was a faint, high-pitched sound, a cry. Ajoa stopped, her brow furrowing in confusion. She listened closely, thinking she must have imagined it, but there it was again, louder this time. A baby's cry. Startled, Ajoa dropped her hoe and looked around. The nearest village was far away, and there were no homes nearby. She followed the sound, her heart-red cloth flapping in the wind as she walked across the field. To her astonishment, the crying seemed to be coming from a patch of earth not far from where she had been working. Ajoa knelt down and began to brush away the dirt with her hands. As she cleared the earth, her heart raced. There, beneath a layer of soil, she found a tiny bundle wrapped in a tattered piece of cloth. She gasped, pulling it up gently, and to her utter shock, inside the bundle was a baby, a beautiful, dark-eyed girl. The infant blinked up at her with wide, curious eyes, her cries softening now that she was in Ajoa's arms. For a moment, Ajoa stood frozen in disbelief. She looked around, half expecting someone to rush forward and claim the child, but there was no one. It was just her, the baby, and the vast, empty farmland. Ajoa cradled the baby to her chest, her mind spinning with questions. Where had this child come from? Who had left her here, buried beneath the soil? And why had Ajoa been the one to find her? She stood there, holding the infant, overwhelmed by a strange and powerful sense of destiny. It was as though the gods had answered her prayers in the most unexpected way. She whispered a soft prayer of thanks before hurrying back to the house. When Kofi returned later that day, he was greeted by a sight that nearly made him drop his basket of yams. There was Ajoa sitting on their porch, holding the baby girl in her arms, her face glowing with joy. "Ajoa," he exclaimed, rushing toward her. "Whose child is this?" Ajoa smiled, her eyes filling with tears of happiness. "I found her in the fields, Kofi. Buried under the soil. She was just there, waiting for us." Kofi stared in disbelief, his heart pounding. He knelt down beside his wife, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. She was real, warm, and alive. He could hardly believe it. "Do you think?" Kofi hesitated, his voice choked with emotion. "Do you think the gods sent her to us?" Ajoa nodded, her voice trembling with the weight of her conviction. "I believe they did, Kofi. She's our blessing, our miracle." They decided to name the child Afia, which meant born on a Friday, as that was the day Ajoa had found her. From that day forward, Afia became the light of their lives. They raised her as their own, and the village, though initially filled with whispers and curiosity, soon accepted the mysterious child as part of Kofi and Ajoa's family. Afia grew quickly, and as she did, strange and wonderful things began to happen. The couple's farm, which had always yielded modest crops, suddenly became the most fertile land in the entire village. Their fields were abundant with yams, maize, and plantains, and their livestock flourished. Word spread quickly, and soon people from neighboring villages came to buy from Kofi and Ajoa, marveling at the quality of their produce. It wasn't just the farm that prospered. Kofi and Ajoa themselves seemed to be blessed in every way. Their health improved, their home was filled with laughter, and their wealth grew beyond what they had ever imagined. It was as though Afia had brought an invisible light with her, illuminating every corner of their lives. But Afia herself was the most extraordinary of all. From a young age, she possessed an unusual wisdom, often speaking with the knowledge and insight of someone far older than her years. She had a calming presence that seemed to bring peace to everyone around her. Whenever someone in the village was sick or troubled, they would visit Afia, and she would sit with them, holding their hand and speaking softly. Miraculously, many of these people would leave feeling better, their ailments eased and their hearts lighter. As the years passed, the villagers began to believe that Afia was no ordinary child. Some said she was a gift from the gods, sent to bless Kofi and Ajoa for their goodness. Others whispered that she was a spirit child, born of the earth itself. But whatever the truth was, no one could deny the blessings she had brought to her family and to the village. One day, when Afia was about 12 years old, the village was struck by a terrible drought. The rivers dried up, and the crops withered under the relentless sun. The villagers were desperate, their livelihoods and survival hanging in the balance. Despite their best efforts, nothing seemed to grow, and many began to fear that they would not survive the season. Kofi and Ajoa, too, were worried, though their farm had fared better than most. Still, the drought was severe, and even their fertile land was beginning to show signs of strain. One evening, as they sat outside their home, watching the dry wind sweep across the fields, Afia approached them with a calm expression on her face. "Don't worry, mother, father," she said, her voice steady and soothing. "The rains will come soon." Kofi and Ajoa exchanged a glance, their hearts heavy with doubt. But there was something in Afia's tone, a quiet certainty, that made them pause. They had learned long ago to trust in their daughter's strange wisdom. The very next morning, the skies, which had been clear and unforgiving for weeks, darkened with thick, heavy clouds. By midday, the heavens opened, and rain poured down in a deluge. The fields drank deeply, and the village was saved from the brink of disaster. The villagers marveled at Afia's prediction, and from that day forward, they held her in even greater awe. It was said that she had the ear of the gods, that her connection to the earth and the heavens was something beyond human understanding. As Afia grew into a young woman, her influence only deepened. She became a figure of quiet power in the village, not through force or authority, but through her compassion and wisdom. She brought peace where there was conflict, healing where there was pain, and abundance where there had been lack. And though she never revealed the true mystery of her origin, Kofi and Ajoa knew in their hearts that she had been sent to them for a reason. The child who had been born of the earth had brought with her blessings beyond measure.